Thank you for joining us for this segment of New Life Today. Listen, do us a favor. Give us a thumbs up. Share this video. Share the videos throughout our time YouTubing. Leave us some comments. Click the bell and get notifications, and let us know what you think about the content. We bring a variety of content and different things biblically. But let us know what you're thinking. We've been talking about the Psalm 83 war. And there's two other videos that you can find the link in description, and you can go back and get the earlier information and the foundational information. But we're going to deal with those 10 nations, and we're going to do that right now. So Israel has been, as if it's never been in the news. It's always in the news, Jerusalem, Israel, but it will begin to dominate the news even more as we move more and more into the latter times, of the latter times, I guess I should call it. It would be the last moments, the last hour, the last minutes of the latter times. But in Psalm chapter 83, an individual by the name of Asaph, who was David's worship leader, but he was also a seer, or he was a prophet, what we would know as a prophet, or what the scripture, or what the ancient language would call a seer. And he saw something happen in Psalm chapter 83, writes about it. In a time of actually peace, Israel was not in war. They were not at war. They were not going to war. David was ruling. Peace was in the kingdom. They were sitting in Jerusalem at peace. But Asaph sees beyond the time frame in which they were in. And so he sees into the future and gets a prophetic glimpse of things that are coming. And when he does, he sees in Psalm chapter 83 a 10-member coalition that is coming. And these are enemies of not just the people of God, but they are enemies of God himself. That's what Asaph says in the first couple of verses of the 83rd chapter of the book of Psalms. He says, Lord, your enemies have conspired against you, and they are making plans against your people. And so he begins to appeal to God for safety, and begins to appeal to God for retribution against Israel's enemies. And this is what he says concerning these nations. The scripture says, with one mind they've plotted against you, and they form an alliance against you. And he gives the description of these right here, verses 6 through 8, the tents of Edom, and the Ishmaelites, Moab, and the Hagrites, Gebal, Ammon, and Amalek. Philistia with the inhabitants of Tyre. Assyria also has joined with them, and they have helped the children of Lot. Selah. Now, Bill Salas has written several books, of which I own just about every one of them, and they're very interesting books. If you like Bible prophecy, I'd encourage you to get his books. He's a great writer, has great insight into biblical events, Bible prophecy. And he wrote one on the Psalm 83 war, and he kind of really was, I would say, maybe one of the groundbreaking prophecy scholars that really began to bring this to the forefront. And he lists these nations that here Asaph identifies. Now, they're not identifiable by their ancient names any longer, just as, we read about Persia. And Persia is an ancient name of a kingdom that actually still exists it doesn't exist under the name Persia. It actually exists under the name of Iran. And but until 1937, they were known as the Kingdom of Persia. But in Ezekiel 38, 11 and 12, here's what the scripture says. It says, I will go up against the land of unwalled villages. I will fall upon the quiet people who dwell securely, all of them dwelling without walls and having no bars or gates, to seize spoil and to carry off plunder. Now, that is the coalition of Ezekiel, chapter 38, those armies that are going to come in the last days to try to destroy Israel, and they will be slaughtered in the valley of Jehoshaphat. But notice what it says. It says, I'll go to a city of unwalled villages. I will go to a city where no bars or gates are at. As of right now, Israel is not dwelling in a place that is unwalled. They're not dwelling in a place that's not got bars, not got gates. In fact, since the 90s, per building laws, every building has to have a bomb shelter. That's how dangerous they understand their enemies to be. Is that everybody has to have a ready, immediate bomb shelter, fallout shelter to get to, and so they're definitely not dwelling at that place yet. But something happens, something takes place, and that begins to allow Israel to dwell in safety, to dwell in unwalled nations, in an unwalled city, without bars, without gates, without worry, without dread. Now, in this attack that took place on Saturday, the 7th of October, the fences that separated the Gaza Strip from southern Judah was actually cut through. So you're beginning to see the beginnings of those gates coming down, but it's not going to be Israel's enemies that are going to control the land. It's going to be Israel who will control the land. And when you read the Bible and you realize that Israel is not inhabiting anywhere near the land that God promised them, when he said, I'm going to give you this land, they are only inhabiting a small portion of it compared to what God has promised them from where the boundary markers would be. And we know that there will come a day that Israel will possess every bit of the land that God has promised them. And these nations have come against them. So let's take a look at who these nations are today, right now. The tents of Edom represent the Palestinians and the southern Jordanians. The Ishmaelites, those are the people of Saudi. The Ishmael is their father. The Saudis claim, to be, Arab. They claim to be the descendants of Ishmael. They claim to be of that lineage, of that group. You have Moab. Moab are the Palestinians and the central Jordanians. The Hagarites are the Egyptians. Hagar is the matriarch of Egypt. So Hagarites are the Egyptians. Gebal or Byblos, that is Hezbollah and the northern Lebanese. Now, I want you to think about this. Let me go down and then I'll come back to that here in just a second. Amalek are the Arabs of the Sinai area. Ammon are the Palestinians and the northern Jordanians. Philistia is made up of Hamas of the Gaza Strip. Now, I want you to think about this for just a second. It was Hamas of the Gaza Strip that attacked Israel on the 7th. However, Israel is now viewing threats from their northern border. They're at the West Bank, there where the Hezbollah, there in northern Lebanon, the Hezbollah is threatening to get involved in this conflict. Israel just on, I believe it was the 11th of October, somewhere thereabouts. They launched some strikes against. Was it Syria? I was just reading, maybe Damascus, somewhere in there. And of course, the scripture tells us that there's going to come a day where Damascus will be leveled. It'll no longer exist as a city. So you're seeing these places: Tyre, Hezbollah, and southern southern Lebanese. Assyria are the Syrians and northern Iraqis. Now you're not hearing much right now out of them coming in, but what's happening is now you're beginning to see several of these nations under their new names, who we would know them as their new names, beginning to talk about Israel and their not being able to respond in kind. Egypt has told Israel to be careful not to send the Palestinians. Iran is funding so much of this. Hezbollah is threatening off the northern border. Hamas has attacked under the southern border. You've got nation after nation that is rolling into this. Is it a possibility that this Psalm 83 war is looming and is just on the horizon? Absolutely. We could be closer than we have ever been to seeing these wars, Psalm 83 as well as Ezekiel 38 and 39, beginning to take place. Now, somebody might say, Pastor, why are you sharing this? What is the importance of this? Jesus told his disciples, he gives them a parable in the 25th chapter of the book of Matthew. And he talks to them about the need to be watchful and to pay attention. And if we've ever lived in a time where we need to be watchful like never before, that time is right now. We need to watch. We need to pay attention. We need to see what's going on and what's happening. Israel is God's prophetic time clock. Everything that happens prophetically is linked to Israel. It is linked to the city of Jerusalem and the things that go on there. All of the armies, all of the peoples that come against Israel, all of the directions that the scripture talks about, north, south, east, west, all of these things are in direct proximity to Israel. Everything north of Israel, everything south of Israel, everything east and west, I should say Jerusalem. All of these directions are in proximity to Jerusalem. And as we begin to see Jerusalem more and more in the news and Israel more and more in the news, and the nations that are around them, we're beginning to see those birth pains. We had some missionaries that was here with us a week or so ago, and they're missionaries that go to Israel, go to Jerusalem, go to that part of the world, and they work there, and they've got connections there and things that happen. We support them, and they made a statement. This is what's interesting. They made a statement that is so true. They said to the church folks, they said, it's no longer rumors of wars. It's now war. And, the scripture says that they'll declare peace, peace, and then sudden destruction. Israel's been working on this peace plan with the Saudis for quite some time. And part of this is to keep that peace plan from going into place, from the Saudis having peace with Israel. That's part of the reason why these attacks have taken place. They're trying to destabilize all that. They don't want Israel existing. They don't want the Jews existing. They want possession of Jerusalem. They want possession of the land. And so we are seeing things ramp up like never before. And so we have a need to be watchful. There is a parable in that 25th chapter of the book of Matthew on the 10 virgins. And the scripture tells us that several things that we're to do while the bridegroom delays his coming. One, we're not just to take our lamp, but we're to take extra oil in our lamp. That we're not to allow our light to flicker, and we're not to allow it to burn out. We must take the extra oil. We must be vigilant to go out and meet the bridegroom when we hear him. That we are to be in a position that we are ready to meet him, that we're ready to go into the marriage feast when that bridegroom comes, and that we are to be watchful and to watch for his coming and to watch what's happening. And the greatest sign that has ever been given to us is the sign of Jerusalem and the sign of Israel. Jerusalem is mentioned over 800 times in the Bible. It is the number one mentioned city in Scripture. And the Scripture tells us, when it comes to Jerusalem, that God said, I will put my name on that city. God's name is on that city. He owns that city. His throne will be in that city. He will rule and he will reign from that city. And the Scripture says that the children of Israel are connected to that city, and you cannot separate the people and the land. The people and the land are one and the same. The covenant has been made, the covenant has been cut, and it's been cut by God and with God. Now, if we are looking at the possibility of the Psalm 83 war, then we are looking at Israel making short work of this issue, because the Scripture tells us that Israel will be dwelling in safety in unwalled cities and cities without bars when the nations led by that king of the north come down to overtake them. Somebody said, do you know that for a fact? I just know what I read in the Scripture. And I know what I'm looking at. I know what we're seeing. I know what's happening. It is not far-fetched to believe. It's not far-fetched to understand. Listen, people hate not just Israel, but they hate the God of Israel. And they believe that if they can eliminate Israel, that somehow, some way, they can eliminate God. But God has made the promise that if anyone is able to remove Israel, then he's not God. But I want to tell you something. God will show himself mighty on behalf of Israel. So remember Psalm 122. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they prosper who love her. Until we meet again, you can have new life in Jesus today. You can have that new life today. Just look to him. He can make the difference. We'll see you in another video. God bless you.